How's it going, everybody? So in this video, we're going to have a casual discussion about the two biggest problems that I see very, very commonly when people are trying to overcome their chronic severe health issues, problems with injuries, reoccurring injuries and pain conditions, as well as many other aspects of their life, actually. But this is the most common thing that I see in alternative health communities when we deal with herbs, nutrition, supplements, exercise and training, disease reversal, testosterone optimization, dopamine optimization. And I personally struggled with this for a number of years myself, most notably from 2012 until 2015 when things started to become more clear. For me, I only dealt with this for about 3 years, and that was because I was bombarded by all the information in the health field, and I was very confused, like most people commonly express. But after thinking about it all rationally, reflecting on it, and then eventually realizing the importance of scientific research and looking for objective facts as well as multitudes of anecdotal reports from thousands of people, all to kind of like contribute to a clear picture of what's actually going on, combined with the importance of assessing all this information from a calm, relaxed, and neutral perspective. That was when everything started to click, okay? So first of all, what are the two main problems I'm talking about? The first one is health anxiety, hypochondria, and the nocebo effect, okay? I cannot even begin to explain the dozens and dozens of people, okay? Again, this was myself too, okay? There's not one specific or a couple of specific people that I'm talking about in this video at all. But it might sound that way. But I always get comments from a bunch of different people saying like, oh, it sounds like you're talking about me in this video. I'm not. It's just that this is such a common problem that it's very easy to assume that I'm talking, because everyone thinks they're a special snowflake. Everybody thinks that they have some really deeply complicated, unique health problem that only the most complicated and fancy of health practitioners can solve. But no, this is actually a very generic problem, and the only reason why you're not overcoming it is because you see it as a very complicated issue, and you're somehow coaxing yourself to believe that you're broken beyond repair, and any solution that comes to you is too simple usually, or your problem is so vague and unmeasurable that no solution can really help because you don't even have a problem to begin with, right? And so you end up in this cycle of like extreme health anxiety, believing you have a health problem that, you know, is super complicated and you have all these stories associated with it. It's in my genetics, or it's been this way since I was a child. The doctor has told me that this is the genetic disorder that I have, even though it's usually not even a real diagnosis, or if it is, it's not grounded in objective measurements. It's based on symptomology and your own subjective reports, which can't be quantified, so it makes it kind of meaningless. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that tangent, but basically, the nocebo, believing that you have believing that something is causing a health issue, or a supplement is going to cause some kind of irreversible damage to you, or expecting a supplement to trigger anxiety. That's a common one. People are like, oh, I'd love to try holy basil to help relax my anxiety, but every time I tried valerian root or L-theanine, it triggered a panic attack, which just is an oxymoron considering its mechanism of action is the exact opposite. Like, well, I'm just different. I'm special. So if I try this holy basil, it's probably going to trigger a panic attack anyway. Not even acknowledging the fact that panic attacks come from the expectation of something bad happening. It's your very expectation of a threat that triggers a fight or flight response. And so it should not surprise you that when you expect a herb or a supplement to cause, you know, I've had all sorts of crazy things people have told me, but to trigger a panic attack, to make your heart flutter, to trigger a tingly sensation in your big toe or something crazy. Like, I have heard it all, and then people they have these things, and they'll leave me an essay, like a bunch of paragraphs, in my text messages or my emails, about all the things they're scared of that an herb or a supplement might do to them. And then I'm like, hey man, just give it a try and see what happens. And then 4 days later, they're like, oh my God, it completely wrecked my hormone profile. It caused my testosterone to go in the gutter. And I know this because my big toe grew into a elephant. And I'm like, bro, you said you only took that for like 2 days. And you said that you were too scared to take the recommended dose, so you took 1/4 of a dose. And where's your hormone profile? Like, where's the test? Like, oh, I don't need a freaking blood test to know that my testosterone went in the gutter. I know my body. I know my body. And it's like, well, holy crap. You are definitely a special snowflake taking a really mild herb for 2 days at 1/4 of the recommended minimum dose with no blood test at all to measure your hormones. And now you're suddenly diagnosing yourself with like, hypogonadism, like super low T. That sounds crazy, but this is a reality. This is very common, and it's something I've seen in a lot of people. This is Nocebo 101. This is the most extreme case, and this is only with herbs. There's all sorts of other nocebo effects that I see. When I'm a health consultant, this is the one. But as a personal trainer or even an athlete with a bunch of old people around me, I hear all sorts of other ones as well. And so this is the nocebo in action, okay? Fact is that person's obviously has a very severe anxiety problem is what's really going on with them. And they can't stick to any kind of herb, supplement, nutrition, or exercise routine for long enough to really see a real change, to really get an honest experience of what the herb or nutrition style or whatever would actually have on their body. But these people, that they're really scared about what this herb or this thing might happen to them. And then they do it for 2 days, but the anxiety is just too much for them. And then they just freak out with some kind of psychosomatic experience of of something. And they just, because it's so big in their mind, they end up just like throwing the supplement in the trash or asking for a refund. And the reality is, like, this is not just with one herb or one nutrition program. This is the whole reason why they're even tuning into my content or Dr. Andrew Huberman's content or whatever to begin with, is because they have a severe health anxiety. And they're not realizing the cause, that's the problem that they have that's making them seek out health information, is the seeking of health information and the assumption that they're broken. And they are constantly, they're like, oh man, like I have all these like these dopamine problems and these testosterone problems and whatever. And they're binge watching Andrew Huberman videos, and lots of times can't even stay focused on one thing at a time. Like, I've literally messaged people and they'll leave me a long essay about all these things that are going on that they think they have problems with, without no blood test, by the way, ever. And they self-diagnose themselves with like candida and low dopamine and serotonin syndrome and all sort of shit, and low T. And then as I'm trying to type a reply back, they already are trying to respond to what they think I'm going to say. And I'm like, bro, and this is common. and usually when you talk to these people, okay, and I've talked to a lot of them, and by the way, I'm not nothing personal against them, but this is just an archetype of a person. When I talk to them through consultations, very, very often, they're speaking in very anxious tempos, and there's very anxious undertones, and they seem to have really bad anxiety is really the underlying problem that they actually have. But the problem with nocebo is that you purposely believe that you have a problem, or you believe that something's not going to work, or like you believe in a limiting belief, okay? And when you are in that mode, and it's an emotion now, it's like living as an emotion. You are feeling that, right? You're not aware of what's underlying that feeling state. You're not aware of the anxiety. You can't accept the fact that it might be anxiety, that I might be causing my own issue by identifying as broken when I'm actually not. Now, keep in mind, there are real health problems that most people face, and these people oftentimes are dealing with health problems, right? It's not like it's not like you're always creating your health problem from nocebo, but very often I see this, very, very often, especially with chronic health anxiety. And the thing is, the health problems that you might actually really have, like you might be able to see on a blood test, because you're so anxious about all of these things and how they might potentially mess you up in the long term or something, right? You're always scared that if you change your diet or you do this or you do that, it might like kill you or something, right? This used to be me. And so, for the actual health problems you do have, you're so anxious about possibly dying or whatever, making your chronic butthole explosion worse or whatever it might be, colitis or arthritis or whatever, that you can't stick to one program for long enough to actually see if it helps, because a practitioner might tell you, hey, try 3 grams of sodium per day, okay? Now, I have mixed responses to this. Some people like, okay, it sounds like a lot, and I'm, high blood pressure and all this crap, but I'll believe it. I'll try it for a while. Usually they feel better, but some people, they'll do it like once, maybe for a couple days, but then they're like, oh shit, like I almost died, and I had all this like really extreme problem and all this crap, and I'm like, but wait a second, you said your kidney function was fine. You said that you had no real health issues that would contribute to the sodium having any negative effect. But they're like, no, but you don't understand, like, like I'm a special snowflake and I have this problem, or like I heard sodium from this and this and this, or I just don't see why I need to eat a salt rock. Like I hear all these crazy things, and then it's like, okay, well, we've been, we've been trying to consult, we've been consulting for 3 years now, and you always come to me with the same exact problem, just painted in different ways. But every time I tell you to do this exact thing and try it for a while, you quit prematurely. You quit after 3 or 4 days and never stick to it. Usually not even 3 or 4 days. It's never been that long. Usually by the third consultation, me saying the same thing, either that person just like thinks I'm a quack, or else I just say, hey, look, I told you what you need to do, and I don't want to take your, I don't want to, you might want to like, yeah. It's like, there's only so many times I could tell someone something and then them just not do it. Because the thing is, maybe the salt isn't your best option. Maybe it's not the solution you're looking for. Or maybe the elimination diet isn't what you need. Or maybe the nettle root extract or the dopamacuna isn't the herb for you, right? But the problem is you'll never know unless you can actually go through with the experiment and try it. And with health anxiety, it's just hard for people to stick to one routine, because they're always assuming that that routine needs to change because they create these psychosomatic issues in their heads that prevent them from going through with the experiments. Okay, the only reason why I have healed all my health issues over time is because the biggest reason why is because I was able to stick to one routine at a time. And the thing is, if it really fucks me up after, and I mean 3 months usually, 3 months of an experiment, and if it continues to fuck me up for 3 months, and I've tinkered with things and refined things, I've isolated the issue, then by fucking my own self up through trial and error, I figured out a cause, or I've gathered more information to help me get closer to finding the solution to my problem. But if I only stuck to it for 1 week, I don't have enough experience with it yet. You know, and people will try hundreds of different health practices or supplements or whatever in a short amount of time, like a month or 2 months. And meanwhile, they're in this loop of all these these potentials, like these paralysis by analysis. They're in a thought loop of all hypotheticals, like, oh, but what if my freaking DHT converts into freaking estradiol through the D1 receptor on 900 NRF2 pathway and my big toe follicule. They have all these, like, that's just but they have all these hypotheticals as to like what might be happening or what this herb might do with that's grounded in no real tangible experience, no blood markers of testosterone levels or any of that. And they're scared to invest in like blood tests because like, well, what if it doesn't tell me anything? It's like, well, then you've at least tried that path, and now you know for sure. But yeah, so people are usually just way too anxious, way too overthinking, over contemplating, and they're not sticking to things. They're way too in their mind. They're just consuming all these different pieces of information without fully diving in. They refuse to read whole books, I've found. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I can't begin to explain the hundreds of people that I've said, hey, look, you need to read these top 5 books in this order. And if you read each book front to back, it'll only take you 1, maybe 3 months if you really dedicate yourself, 3 months tops. Read the top 5 books, and it'll give you all the information that I currently understand as everything I ever needed to know. It took me 10 years to get all this information, and you can get it in 3 months by reading these books. But these people can't dedicate themselves to a streamlined, structured process of information by reading the books. So like, oh, fuck, okay, well, I'm like, and then like a couple weeks pass, I'm like, hey, how'd you like the book? Like, oh, I read a couple pages. It was interesting. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like, how do you even know? Like, what's the benefit of reading a couple pages? Like, oh no, I got the gist of the book by reading a couple pages, and I skimmed through it. And I'm like, okay, and like, yeah. So anyway, what about all these biohacks and what that Dave Asprey and this other researcher, and I'm like, what about resveratrol? What about the freaking glucoraphanos and broccoli sprouts and the super greens? I'm like, oh geez, or the lycopene pigment of the freaking tomato. What do you think about all that and its effects on this? And I'm like, motherfucker, you need to read those 5 books I told. And I can't even begin to explain how many times this has been the case. People have these problems. Like, they'll have lingering pains in their shoulder, lingering injuries. They'll have an intestinal issue, and they think they need to fix their gut microbiome and all this other stupid shit. And they have all these, like, they spend hundreds of dollars on these probiotic supplements that they don't even know the research behind or any of that. They're just like, oh, this expert said it does this and this and this. And on these complicated protocols, and meanwhile, intermittently, I might find them munching on sugar or some other crazy shit. or they'll post like a picture of like sodas and French fries on their fucking social media, and I'm like, and they're an active consulting client of mine, and I'll message them. I'm like, hey, I thought you said you were trying to heal your gut with all these complicated problems, and like, oh well, I'm taking the probiotics, and I'm mostly eating according to the protocol, and it's like I don't even know how to wrap my mind around this. Like, sometimes I wonder if people are actually wanting to heal themselves, if they're actually trying to heal themselves. And if your intention is really to heal yourself and you pay for somebody to help you, like, I don't know if it's a nocebo or I don't know. But anyway, so the big thing, and so that's the second one, is paralysis by analysis. Okay, there's nocebo effect and there's paralysis by analysis, and just a lack of consistent adherence to the most rational protocol and trial and error and consistency. Literally, the way that I fucking healed myself: severe irritable bowel syndrome, psoriasis, extreme severe anxiety attacks. It was a panic disorder for 2 years, in and out of panic attacks every couple hours. It was terrible. Trial and error with health information, tonic herbs that were aimed to improve GABA, really, but relax the nervous system. And then breathing practices, meditation, and studying anxiety and the fight or flight response. And going all in on veganism to eventually find out that it was the grains, beans, nuts, and seeds and the high amounts of fiber I was eating that was really messing me up. And then eventually, when I just went meat, fruit, and like broccoli and cauliflower, that was the diet that completely resolved my intestinal issues and irritable bowel syndrome. And it was literally just committing to the vegan diet that made me realize that that was the problem. Okay. And then doing the exact opposite, which actually yielded the benefits to me of resolving my health issue. Now I have contrast. Like, the vegan diet fucked me up, clearly. And then when I did the opposite of the vegan diet, it healed me. And then it's like, voila, now I found a solution to my problem. But what do other people do? They're like, oh, I'm listening to like 10 different health experts that all say different things. I don't know what to believe anymore. Oh my God. And then they have like 20 different supplements in their cupboard. And they're taking all these different supplements that do all these different things. They don't even know what the fuck's working for them. And it's like you talk to them a year later, and they're worse than they were before they started. And like, well, you have to understand, like, I spent 20 years hurting myself and messing myself up. It's going to take 40 years to detox and all this other shit. It's like, no, you're doing the wrong thing. That's what's wrong. You're going about it all the wrong way. And so the greatest quote that can help steer you in the right direction is, you cannot solve a problem by the same mindset in which it was originally created. So if you're approaching all of this stuff with like this like overcomplicated, highly anxious approach, and you're constantly finding that no matter what actual techniques, protocols, supplements, diets you choose, you still get bad results, then maybe it's time you change your mindset, your approach, your paradigm. But most people, like, that's way too beyond like anything they can comprehend. Most people cannot comprehend, oh shit, wait a second, paradigm, that's big picture thinking, right? I'm coming at this from the reductionist mindset, like, what does this supplement do to my DHT on the D1 receptor and the D1 dopamine compared to D3 receptor? And then it's a freaking tyrosine carboxylase inhibitor, minus 1 to the third power on my myonuclei and my hypothalamus, even though I know all of these terms are completely unrelated in actual biochemistry. But or like, you need your RDI of vitamin C. Otherwise, there is a high correlation of vitamin C deficiency and histamine intolerance and yada yada. Or if you don't get 8 hours of sleep, you set yourself up for a severely high risk of increasing body fat and type 2 diabetes. And it's like, that is reductionist thinking. Okay, correlation does not equal causation, and there is no experimental trial showing that if you sleep 2 to 3 hours under the mainstream consensus agreed amount of sleep that they think you need, that it will cause these things to happen. There's observational evidence that people who tend to sleep a certain amount tend to also get that amount of diseases. But people can't think that way. In fact, they don't have the patience to even think about what the fuck I just said and how it's relevant to their experience. They're just in this like whirlwind and cyclone and tornado of hypotheticals and thoughts. And, I have all these problems and I don't know what to do. When we consult with them, it's just like constant, like, anxious blabbering. And I'm so sorry if I don't want to sound condescending or like I'm, talking down on people, but my goal is not to be nice, and my goal is not to be mean. My goal is to help people, and it's like, and this is the problem, and it's been in my awareness for so long now. But the issue is, if you are plagued by this health anxiety, okay, by the no matter how it presents itself, okay, you are not ever going to be able to heal yourself until you overcome the anxious energy, the extreme, like, oh shoot, like, I don't know what to do, like, I need to do something, like, because you're not going to be able to stick to a program long enough to see what it actually does. Trial and error process. You're not going to be able to find out what's actually working when you try it. And because you're going to because when something actually is working, it's going to be very hard for you to accept that you're actually finding solutions to your problems, because you're still caught in that anxious loop, and new psychosomatic symptoms start to happen where you can't. And I've seen this so many times where we have actually completely resolved somebody's health issue, but then they're still convinced that it's still not perfect enough. And there's people on YouTube that are examples of this, like Vegetable Police was one of them back in the day. If you don't know who it is, search it up. Where he's always trying new health protocols, and he'll make a video like, oh my god, I healed all my problems on carnivore or on fruitarianism. And then he'll be like, but I had like a little bit of acne on my face, and like, my digestion just wasn't where I wanted it to be and all this stuff. It wasn't perfect enough for me. So now I'm going to do the complete opposite extreme nutrition. And it's like, motherfucker, you completely resolved your colitis and all these other things, and you made a video about how amazing it was, but the little bit of acne that came up and the little so-called digestion thing that you claim you had now makes you want to do the exact opposite extreme. And it's like, then the question has to be presented. Did you actually heal your health problem? And they probably healed their health problem, but then it's like, what's that little bit of acne or that mild sensation of digestion that you weren't comfortable with? Was that really even related to your diet? Was that really even a cause for concern? That is health anxiety, hypochondria. That is nocebo at play. And they're in a like a freaking loop or an ebb and flow of just like, I found solution, yay, and then like, oh fuck, I'm still fucked, yay, and then it's like, and then they'll have all these explanations as to why they are never going to be fixed. And the reality is, your mentality, your mindset, your belief, it is you who is accidentally, maybe subconsciously, choosing to forever be broken. And so where I'm getting at with this is like, okay, at the most basic level, you're never going to find a supplement, a nutrition protocol, a food intolerance, or even a medical drug that completely fixes your health problems or helps you reach that peak of health, what I call the nirvana of health, like that filling state that you think that you can achieve with a supplement, a magic supplement, magic pill, or whatever. You will, even if those things actually exist, if a magic pill exists, you will never experience the benefits of a program. Like, even if everyone else insists, like, oh yeah, the keto diet made me feel all this unlimited energy and stuff, or like me, like I say, oh, rhodiola changed my life, right? If you are the type of person that has this health anxiety, and that every time you try a new supplement, you're like, oh shit, I read all these anecdotal reports on Reddit about people saying that their freaking gonads completely fell clean off their pelvis when they tried lion's mane or something. And you're never going to experience the benefits of anything when you nocebo yourself like that. The fact is, for every supplement, like for example, I've made videos talking about how ashwagandha just caused extreme problems for me, and it's possible it could do it for other people as well. Like anhedonia, depression, are things, and reishi can do that too sometimes with the wrong dose. And even like ginseng made me extremely anxious when I had the wrong dose. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to assume that that herb in question is just inherently bad, right? Like, oh, ashwagandha, it's toxic, it's estrogenic, it's this, it's that. Just because other people said that they had a bad experience with it. But that's what people assume. They're like, oh, fuck, like these 3 people on Reddit out of 1,000 people who said it. 1,000 people said that freaking nettle root was amazing and increased their testosterone, their libido and stuff. But these 3 people said that it might inhibit DHT, and they have no blood tests to prove it. And then you're like, well, I'll go with the 3 people out of 1,000 that, you know, because I'm a nocebo health hypochondriac. You know, like these 3 people said that freaking lion's mane caused their freaking balls to fall off their pelvis. Out of 10,000 who said lion's mane completely changed their life, reversed their grandpa's dementia, and all this other crazy shit. No, these 3 people who like are now have a legitimate gender change that they didn't ask for. I'm gonna go with them. I'm exaggerating, obviously, because there's more anecdotal reports than that, and it obviously their balls didn't fall off, but like. The biggest thing that I see though too, and I've seen this with like caffeine withdrawal forums, like these people who do no caffeine experiments, they'll go from like drinking 80 milligrams of caffeine a day, like a daily Coke, to then trying to do a no caffeine experiment, and they'll say, well, after a month, I have extreme depression, I have all these other problems. And then they'll report back a year later, I still have all these like extreme caffeine withdrawal problems. Like, and you know, like maybe some people, maybe they drink 2 energy drinks a day or something, like 300 milligrams of caffeine a day or something. And then they try to go on a no caffeine experiment to try to resolve their anxiety or something, or their depression. And they're convinced that they have permanent damage after trying to withdraw from caffeine that doesn't go away. And you'll see these like these testimonials on the internet from people who had depression or had anxiety and then tried to go off caffeine, and then somehow believe after a year later they're still withdrawing from it, and that it made their freaking depression even worse, right? And like, yeah, it's caffeine's a dangerous drug, it's gonna kill you. And it's like, on one level of things, I can understand. Like, yeah, maybe caffeine can have some unforeseen consequences for some people, and it's normalized in our society. However, it is so uncommon for people to have extreme withdrawal symptoms past the 2-month mark of caffeine, provided they're consuming under 500 milligrams of caffeine a day before. It is so uncommon that for somebody to insist that after a year of trying to detox from caffeine or come off caffeine, that they still have life-changing, like death-defying depression or something. To me, that sounds like, number one, like obviously they had mental health issues before they tried to come off caffeine. Number two, the caffeine has been scientifically proven more than any other compound to have mood boosting, neurotransmitter boosting type benefits. Literally, you can self-medicate with it for some people in some regards, especially something like ADHD, right? Or chronic sleep deprivation, okay? And so maybe the caffeine was helping them. Now that they're off of it, they see their baseline, right? And a lot of times these people, they're not following a high protein, like what I believe is a healthy diet. Like, okay, like they're not following a freaking carnivore diet with fruit. You know, and that's my bias. But like, they're not getting the nutrients that they need to like feel good. And once they come off the caffeine, then you realize all the side effects of a sleep deficit, of a nutrient deficit, because now you don't have this elevated neurotransmitter state, and your body has to produce its own neurotransmitters from the building blocks you give it, which is protein, amino acids, vitamins, and minerals, you know, and your diet. And it's just interesting to me that these people think that the defining factor in their mental health is whether they drink caffeine or not. It is when you're hooked on caffeine, but after a year of being off caffeine, there's something else going on. And sometimes these people will be like, oh, it's because I took a little bit of chocolate. I accidentally ate a little bit of chocolate that I didn't know was in my food at a restaurant. And I got spiked with 5 milligrams of caffeine with some cocoa powder. And that caused a freaking mental outbreak. And it's like, maybe, you know, like did you notice these effects before or after you found out you had you were spiked with cocoa? Like after, it's like complete nocebo. Complete nocebo. Or people will take a lion's mane extract that they'll take like a really low dose, like 1/4 of a teaspoon. And the brand that they're taking is like 50% brown rice. And it's not even a standardized extract. And it's a brand that's known to be mostly rice. It's not even using the right part of the herb, which most people say, like lion's mane, should be like you don't have to have the fruiting body, which is not wrong. And some people are dumb and they'll be like, oh, lion's mane's not an herb, it's a mushroom, bro. It's like Chinese tonic herbs, completely different terminology. But anyway. And then they're like, yeah, like I took like 1/4 of a teaspoon of like this brown rice diluted lion's mane extract. And I had like the worst existential crisis ever and like crippling depression. I almost committed suicide. And they'll post on like a forum about it. And then I'll have clients who come back to me and say, "What? Oh, I'm so scared to take lion's mane because of this." And I'm like, I had to point out, hey, like there's some very extreme reasons why you shouldn't believe this person, like why you should, you know, but people believe shit like that. And then the expectation effect, there's a whole book written on it. There's a whole body of literature supporting it, creates a nocebo effect where now these people take like, you know, some lion's mane. And they might feel euphoric at first and everything, but then the lion's mane leaves their system, and then they have a nocebo. They're like, "Oh shit, I'm like fucking dying, you know." And it's like, it's called a nocebo effect, buddy. So anyway, this is all philosophy and perspective on all of this stuff. I have not made a structured video on this yet. I don't think, with timestamps and breaking it down one by one. I'm really sorry if this sounds condescending in any way or it feels like I'm targeting people or anything like that, because that's not what I'm trying to do at all. It's just that this has been on my mind for years because of all the different people that I've consulted with who have suffered from this issue. And it's glaringly obvious. I haven't even begun to talk about people who nocebo themselves into worse and worse injuries as time goes on. That's something I'll make another video. I've made videos talking about that briefly, especially with limiting beliefs. I have a video on that with timestamps. But um, what is the solution to all of this? For me, first of all, because I used to suffer from this problem. I had all of these friends that were high level experts in health and authorities and stuff, right? That I was paying for like martial arts training and nutrition and all that stuff back in the day. I had mentors, and I remember when I was operating from the nocebo effect, these people assumed I was crazy. So first of all, I can empathize, okay, because I don't assume people are crazy. It's just that we're living in different realities where I can't reach you in your reality. But like, I remember nothing that these people said could help me. Like, they give me really good advice. We'd spend hours talking about our problem. And they'd be like, Wolfgang, you just really need to commit to this protocol and do this. It'll help everything. And then I'm like, yeah, sure, sounds good. You're right, blah, blah, blah. I'll totally do it. And a week later goes by, and they're like, hey, man, like, how's the protocol going? And I'm like, oh, I decided I needed more hemp seed in my diet, so I bought a pound of hemp seeds, and I limited my red meat because of parasites and all this other crap. And then he's like, bro, I told you, you're a type O blood type, which is bullshit, by the way. The blood type diet is stupid, but like, whatever. It's like, I told you need red meat and avoid the seeds and blah, blah, blah. Like, what the hell, man? Commit to the protocol and see if it works. And it's like my stubborn, anxious bullshit continuously held me back for so long from like just committing to a program from one of my best friends who was like a doctor or my kung fu master at the time or whatever, who was giving me really good life advice and stuff, which I still have trouble adhering to sometimes. I don't remember it as well. I don't focus on it enough. But when I just say, fuck all of the bullshit, commit to a program, and see, and if it doesn't work, use it as information. If it does work, then I'm closer to my solution. All problems go away. So you cannot help somebody you can't force somebody with a really bad nocebo to just go through with it. So I don't know. All I know is I gotta go to the restroom really bad right now and get ready for my next client. So leave your question in the comments down below. Talk to you later.